He was the founder of StockX and led them into the trading card world. And then he left to start a trading card venture of his own. First, Zero Cool, and then partnering up with Fanatics to form Fanatics Collectibles and to bring Fanatics into the world of trading cards. His name is Josh Luber, and he has had a marked impact on the sports card world, a massive impact over the last few years. Now he's on to a new venture, starting a collectible toy company called Ghostwrite. Today, we're going to talk about all of it. We're going to get his perspective on where the trading card world is today and how it's the same or different maybe than what he envisioned a few years ago. And we're going to learn what he's doing with his new collectible company as well. So welcome Josh to the Geoff Wilson Show. This episode is brought to you by Arena Club. Arena Club is an innovative platform featuring grading and authentication, vaulting, and digital pack openings. Be sure to check out the amazing items up for auction right now at Arena Club. From rare cards to top-tier collectibles, there's something for you at Arena Club. Download the Arena Club app today by searching Arena Club in the App Store on your phone, and then use promo code SCI for 10% off your first purchase of cards at Arena Club. Josh, welcome to the Cards HQ and welcome to the show, man.
Thanks, man. Happy to be here. Thank you very much for having me. Thank you for the very nice intro. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I did that sitting next to you here with no teleprompter, no script.
I actually looked up for a teleprompter. I swear to God, I was like, that's very good.
I've done enough of these now, so I've gotten good at them. I remember actually. The first time I ever met you was in 2019 at the eBay or at the industry conference in Vegas. Yep. And back then, I mean, it was a small thing compared to what it kind of, well, I mean, really the whole trading card industry, kind of what it went on to become, right?
Yeah.
But I remember back then I had just started my Sports Card Investor show and had just been going for a couple of months, and you hadn't heard of it, but I was like, oh, and you're like, you know, you went and listened to one of my podcasts, and I asked you what you thought of it, and you said, well, you know, you're no Joe Rogan, but you covered some interesting stuff.
I remember that so clearly, and I remember being like, I was trying to be honest, but not, and I gotta say, man, like, I mean, you're so good on camera right now. Like and part of it is just reps, right? Of like doing it all that. Yeah. But it's great to go back and look at ourselves earlier and like how we've evolved through that. I mean, that was what, 6 years ago now.
Yeah.
Right.
It was.
And I remember that so clearly. Yeah. I remember because I went back to my hotel room that night and I watched the first couple of videos because we met that first night. And then the second day I went back and, you know, you kind of caught me off guard and I was trying to be nice and trying to be whatever, but you know, congrats, man. It's been a great run for you.
Well, the videos did suck back then. Even my wife told me that the videos were, she's like, these things are so boring and bad. Yeah. And so it's definitely gotten a little bit better over the years. Yeah. As you said, practice helps make things certainly better. Have had a lot of reps and obviously have now a great production team as well that working with me. But thank you. It's been a really fun ride. And you've played all these different important roles in the whole trading card industry over the last 5+ years now. When you were there in 2019 at the industry conference, it's because you had founded StockX. StockX had obviously grown to be this leader in the sneaker world, and you were kind of hunting around the possibility of bringing StockX into trading cards. And then it was a number of months after that when you did your first like Dutch auction, blind Dutch auction drop on StockX. You did the Bowman Chrome X product. Yep. You partnered with Topps to do that. That was super cool. Yeah. And I remember at the time, we did like a little bit of sponsorship to promote that, but I did a couple of videos where I said, this should be the future of how new sports card releases come out. I'm like, this makes so much sense. Yeah. This is the most fair way to determine the actual market value of a new release, and to be able to go direct to consumer and cut out the, really cut out the flippers and the distributors and all these layers in between that were taking kind of extra markup, because it set a very fair market price from day one. Yeah. I love the concept. Yeah. You did the one drop with StockX. I said, this is going to be the future. Then Panini rolls out with Dutch auctions. but they don't do it your way.
No, they call it a Dutch auction.
Right.
And in fact, the Dutch auction, it's funny. Some people actually think that we came up with the term blind Dutch auction that didn't exist. It was hard for us to figure out how to call it. But anyway, what Panini is doing is basically the exact opposite.
Yes.
Right? Which is we're going to start up here. We're going to sell as many as we can at this price.
Right.
And keep, so everybody loses. Everybody pays more than somebody else, except the very last person. That last person wins, but everyone else basically loses. And that's just a crappy feeling to walk away and know that you paid more than somebody else. So yeah, so it's the exact opposite. But,
I hate it.
Yeah,
I hate it.
It's a bad system.
I hate it. It's an awful system, and even Topps has done it a few times along the way. Not Panini does it every new product release. Topps has done it that way for like more kind of special drops now and then. But I've been waiting for one of these companies to actually implement your system, and no one has done it.
You know, maybe I've been talking about this for so long, and I've been trying to do it at so many different places. And by the way, we'll get to this, and it's a big part of Ghost, right? It's a big part of what we're doing here. But even dating back to that Topps release back in Bowman Chrome that we did in 2019, you know, we did this for the first time in January of 19 at StockX. And that's why I was at the Beckett conference there. Because I thought that trading cards might be a more perfect product for this idea, right? Because sneakers, you have all these other things that go into sneakers in terms of, you know, wearing them and using them, and the value changes. But trading cards, they're essentially just stores of value, right? It's just supply and demand. What is this product worth? And I really still do think that trading cards are the perfect product for that. There's a whole lot of other things that go into that. There's a whole lot of things that create incentives for companies to run the reverse Dutch auction. There's incentives to make more money and figure out how to maximize it. And so there's a lot of other things that go into it. And I don't fault any of those companies for not going after it. The trading card industry is still in a massive transition period right now, as we know. But I do think eventually I'm proved right.
I hope so.
We'll see.
I hope so. I hope they do, at least in limited runs. I mean, it may not be appropriate with every product. And owning a card shop, I appreciate the fact that, you know, they're not trying to sell as much direct through that type of mechanism, you know, but I do think for certain products, like certain limited run products, specialty products that maybe aren't ones that card shops are going to have like a ton of inventory of or whatever. Like to me, it feels like a great way to do it. So,
well, by the way, you could also do it as a wholesale release mechanism. You could just do it as a way to distribute limited product just through from manufacturers to card shops.
Yeah.
You could do it the inverse. You could do it as a way to mark down products for products that are on sale. Fundamentally, it's just a way to reach a market price, of letting the market set the price for any product. And it doesn't have to be the super high-end stuff. It doesn't have to be, all you have to have is a certain amount of liquidity. And really, it's more than one and less than infinite. But, you know, some amount that it's worth the time to go through and doing that. But we didn't make this up. All we did was copy how the finance industry works at many different steps at StockX. And this was one of the many ideas that we implemented and brought over to consumer goods. So it's not like we made this up, but after we did the first blind Dutch auction at StockX, Harvard Business School actually reached out to us and said, we think this is an interesting and unique way to price consumer goods. And they did a case study that's in Harvard Business Review that now business schools use to teach classes. So the fact that it was sort of validated by academia, the fact that we've continued to do them and it continues to work the right way, which is that the pricing ends up being a fair market price. And we're not going to turn this into an economics lecture and go through all the ways of why it works. But every blind Dutch auction that we've done at StockX, at Zero Cool, Fanatics Collectibles, now at Ghostwrite, so far they've all worked the way theory is supposed to, which just reinforces the idea that this is a better way to sell certain products. But you're never going to walk into a store here and have all your products be variable pricing, right? That would be a nightmare for you to try to manage that, right? So there's obviously limitations to it, but anyway, it has become I don't want to be sort of cliche, but it's become my life's work in that it has been the through line through all of these companies that I've created over the last decade. And it's been sort of the guiding principles for what we're doing at Ghostwrite. So I appreciate that we're starting with that, but it is where we started. It's back in 2019 at Beckett.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. All right. Well, anyone who doesn't know about the blind Dutch auction format and the mechanics of it and is interested in learning more, there are some old videos on the Sports Card Investor channel which explain all of it. You could Google it, I'm sure, and find some more about it. I'd love to hear, Josh, your perspective on where the sports card world is today. You wrote back in 2021, you wrote a dossier, a white paper. I don't know quite what you would call it, but this, 50, 60, 70 page report. Trading cards are cool again. And that got spread around a lot in 2021, August of 2021. It was impactful coming from you because a lot of people knew who you were in the industry. It was also very well researched. A lot of time had gone into it. You spent quite a bit you included a lot of data in there. You really made the case for sports cards as a long-term asset class, and had a lot of different ideas about how the industry could be grown and all that type of thing. As you've seen, and then you were part of, after that, you were part of, obviously, Fanatics and their start into sports cards. As we sit here now towards the end of 2024, you kind of look back on this last 3+ year period. How do you reflect on that, and where do you think the industry is today?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for the kind words. That was a paper that came out very organically. We were in the process of starting Zero Cool. We were in the process of very quietly going after the licenses with Michael Rubin to create Fanatics Collectibles at the time. And somebody had asked via email within our group, had asked sort of what we thought the short question is, what do we think of the state of the trading card industry? And it was an email that became a longer email that became a chain. And then we just started writing. And there's a guy named Jesse Einhorn who worked with me at StockX, and then Fanatics Collectibles, and now at Ghostwrite. And he's been sort of my thought partner in a lot of this stuff around blind Dutch auctions and market-based pricing and markets. And so we just started writing. And the fact that it resonated with so many people at that time was, I think, a function of how crazy the market was in summer of 21, right? I mean, if you look back, we had just had the 2 Jordan 10 sell for $720,000, right? Which I think we can all look back at this sort of like moment in time that was just a what the fuck moment, right? Like, just
that was the absolute peak of the market. That, in fact, it's those 2 Jordan Fleer 1986 Fleer sales that sold, the PSA 10s that sold for over $700,000 each you're referring to. I feel like that day, that night, that auction was like the peak, and then from there everything started to slide back in terms of prices.
Absolutely. And after that happened, everybody was scrambling of what do we do? Should we be buying? Should we be selling? For me personally, at that point, I had been 3.5, 4 years back into buying cards, and I was so into cards and convinced of cards as sort of the long-term value. I was like, I don't want to sell. I don't want to move out of any of the positions or any of the cards that I own. But it was like, can we really be buying after what just happened? So anyway, so to take a look at that time, and there's a lot of things in that paper that were very of the moment. However, the core principle I think that underlined it all was, for this industry to grow, we have to figure out a way for all of the trading card companies to their businesses, so they have to grow. There's going to be a lot of infrastructure that changes, new companies that come in, all of the craziness going on right now with Fanatics and Panini. All that stuff has to work itself out. But fundamentally, the trading cards are about scarcity. People want the rarest cards. So how do we grow the whole thing and still have valuable chase elements? And we can all laugh at when Panini has 45 parallels in every other Prism set.
It's a lot more than 45 these days.
Yeah, or whatever it is, right?
145 maybe.
Yeah, exactly, right? And it's comical to some extent, right? But that is that was the fundamental question at the heart of it, which I think is still the question. And I think we've seen Fanatics and Panini do some things that are good around that. MLB patches, for example. Here's a way to create a totally unique chase element that we didn't have before. Yep. It's not 156 parallel or whatever it is. And the flip side is, and then you have continuation of the same thing, because at some level, there's not that many new ideas that come through. So I think the industry is still struggling with that same thing. But we left at this at the part of the industry that was least formed at that point was the infrastructure, the companies. And we've seen a lot of this. We've seen, I mean, just look at your card shop today versus in 2021, you didn't have a card shop. There wasn't a card shop like this in Atlanta or in many stores. Same thing with the state of Fanatics, the state of Topps, the state of PSA.
Yeah.
Look at how much more. We wrote that a whole section of that was about PSA shutdown. You remember when they shut down for like 3 months?
Insane.
Yeah.
Totally shut down.
Because they couldn't handle all the volume, right? So we're seeing these things that come. And so that's just how markets and industries grow, and it's part of that. So anyway, what I'd say is that we're where we should be along that transition, which is these companies becoming more structured and formed, and then the industry can then grow on top of it as well. But we still have to figure out is how do we create chase elements without making it just crazy. Like that'll be the key to the entire growth of this industry.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I do think Topps and Fanatics, and I think this was part of your vision, when you were involved in the early stages of all of that. I do think that they have done a better job now in segmenting products and giving each product a unique chase and a clear chase element. It's not 100% across the board yet, but you've started to see, like, over the last few years, like, products have more of a clear identity, I would say, than they ever had before.
Yep.
You're going to this product because you want, patch autos. You're going to this product because you want to chase parallels and build rainbows. You're going to this product because you want to chase triple patches, triple autos, combined players cards, that type of thing. And I think, and then they've added some very specific chase elements. You mentioned the MLB debut patches. They did that whole, campaign last year with Brady and his, baseball cards. And so that gave a very clear chase element to that product. And they've added these chase elements to specific products over the last couple of years. So I think it's getting better. Yep. But it's hard because it's supply and demand. And, everyone likes to complain about the manufacturers and how you do have 145 parallels or whatever in a Panini product and all these ridiculous parallels, and it waters everything down. And I understand the complaint, and I don't like it either. But at the same time, I'm also like, but Panini's also in a difficult position, because here's the alternative. The alternatives are either they print way less product, but now the secondary market drives, Prism hobby boxes up to $8,000 a box because they're so scarce. Everyone's going to complain about that. Or they print a lot of product, but they don't print a lot of extra parallels. So now the parallels, instead of being you open up one hobby box and you get 3 or 4 or 6 parallels, then it becomes you open up 6 hobby boxes to find 1 parallel. Right. And you're mad when you open up a hobby box that is all base cards and nothing really chase worthy in it, right? So it's like you got to pick your poison here. There's no perfect solution that's going to keep everybody happy.
There's definitely not. It is not an easy problem to solve. We had some ideas. I don't think that any of them are bulletproof. Even your point on the different chase elements that are being created, like the patches, the Brady campaign was great. It was new, it was different, it was something else to go after. But we don't know what the long-term value of those are going to be yet. Mm-hmm. What's the Brady number to 25 worth in 4 years, right? Like that's what really matters. And you still have to keep coming up with creative ways to solve it. But this is part of the challenge of this hobby. I don't know what the answer is, but one of the reasons that I was so bullish on Zero Cool as a brand and the idea of trading cards for non-sports was it was at least a different lane that didn't exist. We don't have, there were some products by Leaf that have been created over the years, but there's not a repeatable brand. There's not like a Topps Chrome or Panini Prism for non-sports, for musicians or artists or whatever. So that was just one idea, not to say that that's at all a silver bullet either. But, if we truly want the hobby to grow, if we want, or even just to sustain, those companies need to be creative and need to come up with good ideas, and it's a hard position to be in, right?
Yeah.
I also think there'll be more energy, resources, and time devoted to that once we get through the Fanatics and Panini issues. Yeah. Fanatics takes full control over basketball and football. They don't spend their time fighting lawsuits, and they just let's just all, grow this together. So, which is to say, I think we're still very early in this journey of the changing of this hobby.
Well, you used an analogy, back probably 2020 as part of 2021, maybe as part of that report. You were talking about the inning that we were in, right? And I heard you speak on that a few times. And I think like back in 2021, you said like, hey, we're only like in the second inning or, pretty early on in the game, right? Second or third inning. I still feel like we're pretty early on in the game.
Yep.
And part of the reason why is because a lot of those things you predicted a few years ago, the company's getting to a position now where there's better quality infrastructure in the hobby. From technology to card shops to grading services and the way that you interact with them to vaults to marketplaces, it's all gotten better.
Yep.
You're seeing some startups do some interesting things, so there's this baseline now that I think is a little bit stronger. And you combine that with Fanatics and Topps finally getting the basketball license and the football license over the course of the next 18 months or so here. And that's a big deal because right now, like all of this effort and money that Fanatics and Topps are investing, at this point, it's only really helping fuel baseball. And then to a smaller degree, things like soccer or Star Wars, some of the non-sports stuff, but
but it's setting the stage.
It's setting the stage.
Basketball and football as
Correct.
they do that, and obviously they're trying to do what they can. Obviously the mercury and the things they've tried to do around that.
Right, but it's setting the stage.
Yeah.
And then I feel like once we actually have full-blown Topps releases of basketball, football, baseball, and then they can put their marketing dollars into it, and the marketing dollars are going to help improve and support and promote the entire ecosystem of cards, not just one line of cards, like is more happening today with like their promotion around baseball cards.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think that one of the sort of maybe unknowns that helps this problem we have on how do we grow without continuing just this endless run of parallels and is repacks, right? Obviously, repacks are becoming a lot more important within the hobby. You and I were talking about this earlier. It seems like everyone that I've been talking, and I've been spending a lot of time in the last couple months talking to a lot of the biggest breakers for the stuff we're doing with Ghostwrite, and everybody is, if not making repacks, selling repacks, they're at least extremely aware of how repacks are impacting the business. And repacks are just a different a different angle on supply, on what supply is out there, how do we use it, how do we make it more valuable, because the supply that's out there impacts the supply that can come out. We saw this in StockX at the most basic level. Air Jordans today do not sell out at the same rate they used to, because if you are a consumer and you want to buy a pair of Air Jordans, you could buy the latest pair of Jordans that are on sale for Nike, or you could buy every Jordan that's ever come out ever at StockX. So now as a consumer, the supply that's out there available at any given time, it's just a way different landscape. That's what repacks are. So I don't know what the solution is. I don't know how this evolved, but you could imagine a world where instead of Topps making, I don't know, how many baseball releases were there this year?
Oh, a lot. I mean, typically 30 or so a year, or something like that.
Right. Yeah. And so, but it's the same players because it's the same set. So you've all, we're all chasing the same rookies. You could imagine a world where, I don't know, a third of the cards in that set each year are actually, and we saw this with the MVP buybacks. Like they're starting to look at these things. And obviously we used to have buybacks and inserts in sets all the time, right? So I think there's something there. I don't know what it is, but fundamentally the question across the board is like, how do we manage supply? And the existing supply is as important as the new supply that comes out every year. So I don't know. I think that may be one of the ways where this thing evolves. So.
Yeah. The tough thing and this has been true forever though in the sports card market, is because there is so much new supply that comes out every year, the older supply, the only things out of the older supply that remain valuable over time are a very small percentage. Yep. It's just the absolute top players, and they're more desirable, more scarce cards. Those are really the only things that maintain value, because your everyday utility shortstop his cards are not going to maintain value in 5 or 10 years, right, when over those next 5 or 10 years there's 300 new sets that have been released, which contain 10 or 20 utility shortstops across all the different teams every single year, right? Like it's got to be only the guys that really stand out. So it is interesting. The new supply hurts the value of the old supply, except for the very top of it.
Right.
So is there a way to have a little bit less new supply to maybe help maintain values by incorporating some of the old supply back into it a little bit? Maybe, but you'd have to get the manufacturers on board with that. And for Topps, it's probably easier for them to just print more new supply.
Well, it's for sure it's easier, but at some point the repack industry will take enough dollars out of the new industry that the manufacturers will care about it and will.
Yeah.
And like I said, they did the buyback, with the MVPs, right? And we've seen this a little bit where Panini will, whatever, have the player sign it, right, and they put it back in there. I forget the exact word that Panini uses for that. We've seen this in the past. There's ways to bring back an old supply, make it valuable, have players sign it, put patches on it. But it's just a way to not make the next parallel, to not make the next set. Right? There just has to be, because at some point we can't be here in 10 years and instead of being 30 baseball releases being 60. Like, no way.
Yeah.
Like what will that look like in terms of, because you still only have the very, very best of the best that are really valuable. And, to your point, the math that you talked about earlier where either you have this many boxes and no hits, or you have one box that's worth $10,000. Like, that's not sustainable. So again, I don't have the specific solution here or a specific suggestion even, but I do think that anywhere that you're messing with overall supply is opportunities to go after this problem and help fix it.
It's an interesting take on it for sure. Yeah. And repacks have, I think, already been felt by the manufacturers in terms of impact.
It's got to be.
It has to be, because if you look at a lot of the bigger breakers, they have switched. Some of them, Backyard Breaks, who revenue-wise was the #1 breaker. I don't know if they still are, but they were definitely the #1 breaker for a bit of time. They switched to almost exclusively breaking repacks for, and they'll still do some new release stuff now, but like the vast majority of their business has been repacks for the last few years. It didn't used to be that way. Like they switch. And you've seen other breaking companies do the same. And so the manufacturers have had to see a decrease in interest from breakers on some of their new product releases, as some of the breakers have shifted their attention to repacks. Yeah. And honestly, the repacks, part of the reason for that is because the repacks were providing a better value to the consumer.
Yeah. Well, that's it. The manufacturers cannot create a 0.9 ROI, right? Yep. They cannot create a 0.8 ROI. It's got to be 0.1 or 0.01, right? It's the only way that happens, which is that, you're either, it's feast or famine. You either get, $0 or you hit a huge card. It has to be that way. It's the nature of it. But a repack, they can sell a repack for $100 and make sure that everybody gets $80 worth of value out of it, right? Mm-hmm. Like they know exactly what's going into that. They can market it that way. They can make it very clear, and that's got to be a lot more appealing to a lot of people buying into breaks, knowing that they're going to get at least $7 out of $10 back or whatever it is, right? Like that's the key to that.
Yeah, I agree, and that's been a challenge for the manufacturers. I do think Topps has been able to successfully fight back against that some by juicing the products with more chases and special new things that you don't even find out about until the release day of the product. And then, oh, by the way, did you know there's this special insert or this throwback autograph set or something in the product? We didn't even put it on the checklist. We're surprising you with it. Yeah. They've been able to juice it and drive additional new interest, but they kind of have to do that now.
100%.
They have to do that. They have to continue to do that. Interesting stuff for sure. What is are you, obviously we're going to talk in just a second here about your new venture, Ghostwrite. I want to hear about this in more detail, but what is your involvement at this point in time within the trading card world? Are you now just kind of a fan sitting back on the sidelines and a collector, or how much, if at all, are you still involved in any of the things that like Fanatics or anybody is doing?
I have no interaction with Fanatics at all. I am completely out. I still am friendly with guys over there and Michael. I'm a collector. I still buy and sell cards every day. I'm on eBay every day, looking for cards. I have also put enough money into cards that I try to only buy when I sell at this point. So I also sell a whole lot. I usually sell through Probstein, just to make it easy and sell parts of cards. But so I'm still very much following the market and part of it. Now with Ghostwrite, I'm actually starting to get back into it a little bit more in the nature of some of the products that we're creating at Ghostwrite. I think will be relevant for breakers, and so now maybe I'm becoming a manufacturer, but it's not trading cards at all, right? It's a different product. It's collectible toys, but you know, I still buy a lot of the same stuff that I was buying before. I still am a big fan of black prisms. You know, to your point on sort of the top of the top, I've been moving a lot of money into even more so than before into NBA black prisms, and I've actually always been a Willie Mays collector. Actually, my bar mitzvah present when I was 13 years old was a 52 tops Willie Mays from my father, and so you know, you and I were talking earlier about how there were some really good buying opportunities over the last couple of years. I'd been trying to buy a PSA 8 52 tops Mays, the one from my bar mitzvah graded a 5, which was nice to have that grade later. And I watched the market for 2 years, and they were always around like 170 to 190, and I found one about a year ago for like about 105. There was like 3 that were happening between like Golden REA and Heritage that were happening within like a 1 week period. And I was able to get the 3rd one, so some other buyers were in their first 2, and so it sort of worked out like perfectly. That's nice. So I'm still like looking for, and so I'm trying to sort of go after my Willie Mays collection. A lot of them are PSA 9s, and then black prisms. So you know, I'm a collector. Yeah, so.
And you were building at one point. You were trying to get a complete black prism set. What was that? 2018 basketball? What was the year you were building?
I still am. What happened is, and you know, this is my own fault, and now I've kind of. Is once people found out I was buying it, then people would go end around me and then try to sell it to me for more because it was the only one, so I had to pay for it. 2018 Prism, you know, Black 101, and obviously the Luca hasn't been pulled,
right?
And so everyone is sort of, you know, focused on that, and I've done well. I have, I don't know, maybe 60 or 70 between, maybe even more than that, including like some of the inserts and autos and stuff like that. But I don't have the Luca, obviously, and yeah. So anyway, that was what I was going after for a while.
So I had
an absolutely impossible chase.
Oh, that's I mean, yeah, obviously that is an impossible chase. You never fully be able to put it together, but it'd be fun to try to get as close as possible. Yeah, I had a case of 2018 Prism. Unopened at one point, and I sold it probably way too early because I sold it. I made money on it. I sold it, I don't know, gosh, two or 3 years ago at this point. But like the kind of the awareness of that Luca 1 of 1 never being pulled has kind of been building over the last few years. Totally. So, you know, now it's like, you know, if you can stumble across a case of that, it's super rare to see one of those these days.
My guess, by the way, is that it's actually not out there, that it's some 12-year-old kid opened it in 2018, and it's sitting in the back of his closet, and he's at college right now and could care less, and it's just, he doesn't even know what he has.
It's possible.
It's just in some box. It's probably not even in a sleeve. It's like, it's still in the box. He opened it. It's all sitting there in the back of his closet somewhere, and someone will find it. And
it's possible.
You know,
It's possible that's what happened to the 2009 Superfractor of Curry as well. Probably, I mean, possibly even more possible that it would have happened back then.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, I mean, no one knows where those cards are. It's wild. It's wild. All right, well, let's talk about Ghostwrite. So this is, I know you've been working on this for a little while. You mentioned, I think I saw you at the National, might have been the year before last in Chicago, when I think that was kind of right when you were starting to work on all this, right?
Yeah, I just left Fanatics. And, you know, I left Fanatics in November of 22. So it's been almost 2 years. If for anyone that's familiar with the collectible toy space, there's a toy that's called a Bear Brick. I don't know, are you familiar with Bear Bricks?
Yep.
Bear Brick is the leader in this space. Bear Brick is by far the longest running, most successful collectible toy franchise, and it's made by this Japanese company called Metacom. And Bear Brick is a human body with a bear head, and all other collectible toys are characters, their IP. It's Spider-Man or Superman or Cause or Astro Boy or these different characters. But Bear Brick is just a shape. it's a blank canvas. Because it's this human body with bare head and it's a lot of like open surfaces, you could put Spider-Man on it, or you could wrap it in a Warhol painting or the American flag or what. And so it's allowed Metacom to work with all the most important artists and companies and brands, and why it's been so successful for so long. And if you think about what trading cards are a blank canvas. It is even more so than a toy. It's just this blank card. You can put anything on it. And the value of that, it's a whole lot more valuable if it's Wemby than if it's, whatever random player, right? And so we sold all these things on StockX. We sold Bear Bricks and all these collectible toys, and I'd always been interested by this. And this idea of market-based pricing we were talking about earlier, it affects all these products the same. It's all supply and demand. It's all about who's on that card, who is on that blank canvas. And so I actually tried to buy Metacom. I thought there was a lot more they could do with Bear Brick. I thought you could take what they've done and use all the things that we've learned about trading cards, about creating scarcity, all these things we just discussed in terms of how those cards become valuable. I thought you could apply it to Bear Bricks because they were this blank canvas of a toy. And it's the same collector, by the way, right? The StockX collector, this is all converged: trading cards, sneakers, collectible toys. And so we couldn't buy Metacom, and so I decided to create my own. And so we created a collectible toy. It's called Ghostwright. It is a kid with a crown, and like Bear Brick, it is a blank canvas. The ghost itself is not a character. There's no face. There's no gender. Right? This is a blank canvas to take on skins. This could be an NBA basketball. It could be Spider-Man. It could be whatever you want it to be. It could be a pair of Nikes. It could be Wemby. Right? It could be LeBron. And so it took a long time to develop a shape that would be able to take to skins, that wouldn't be too much of a character. So that's why you said it's been 2 years. We spent 8 months designing the shape because it had to be unique enough, but it also couldn't be a character in and of itself. So spent 8 months designing the shape, and then we started making ghosts. And we've been making ghosts for about a year, starting in August of last year. And it was all friends and family promotional. We weren't selling anything. We made some with Eastside Golf, which is a golf brand. We made some with Mike Amiri, who's a fashion designer. We made one of Tiffany, the brand, NBA basketball. I mean, we made over 100 different ghosts, and we sell them direct to consumer. This is all blind Dutch auction. This is all the exact same concept dating back. So before I go into the sort of the trading card part of this, that's the short version of Ghostwright. It is a collectible toy in line with Bear Brick, and so we just started selling them about 2 months ago. All sold direct, and there's 3 main sizes. This is 2 inches. There's one that's 11 inches. That's kind of the flagship one. Same thing for Bear Brick, and then there's one that's 28 inches, which is kind of the one that you often see at stores and restaurants, et cetera, like that. So
cool.
Those are the main ones.
So yeah, so the concept obviously of what you put together here is cool. You've got some sports licensing you're bringing into this as well, right? And how is this? How do you make this converge with like what you've learned and have seen in trading cards and sports cards?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that question. That was at the center of all of this. All of these products, again, they're the same. And for us, because I was in the position to work with Michael Rubin and Fanatics and get all the licenses for trading cards, there's 2 licenses you need. You need the league and you need the Players Association. Well, those same people control the licenses for other consumer goods. And so when I told some of them that I was creating a Bear Brick competitor to create a collectible toy, they immediately said, hey, we've done NBA Bear Bricks in the past, but they haven't been very good. We would love to create something like this with you. So I was very fortunate to be in a situation where we now have licenses with the NBA, the NBA Players Association, the WNBA, the WNBA Players Association, Major League Baseball, and Major League Baseball Players Association. So then the question became, well, what do we create? How do we turn a ghost into a professional athlete? A lot of the ones that have been done in the past are not great. And in fact, some of them are almost offensive in the way that they look for the people. So we spent a lot of time, and we came up with a design that we think represents the players well. But what we did was, instead of doing the large ghost, we were using this size, which is 2 inches. And this becomes a blind box. So we have a WNBA set that's coming out in beginning of December. I have samples here that I will not show you the faces as but it's
I see some familiar colors there. Yeah,
and Clark on the back. So there's Caitlin Clark. Here's fresh off her championship, Breanna Stewart.
Okay.
So this is a base card.
Okay.
Right? This is the standard. This is Caitlin Clark, Breanna Stewart. We have the whole set of all WNBA players. But in addition to the base set, there's then one with a gold crown that's numbered to 10. And there's one with a chrome crown that's numbered to 5. And there's one with a red crown that's a 1 of 1. So people will open up blind box cases of ghosts, which operate the same way that blind box toys do. You open up, you don't know what player you're going to get. But like trading cards, we get to take everything we learned about how to create chase elements. So there's 3 main parallels in every set: gold 10, chrome 5, 1 of 1. I mean, this isn't rocket science. Right? We didn't make any of this up. We've Copy All Trading Cards been doing this for 40 years. And we get to apply it to an industry that's big enough to matter. It's big enough to work with all the most important brands and artists and have licenses with the leagues. But the collectible toy space is not so big that you have these monoliths in the space. There is no Nike and Adidas and Foot Locker. There is no, Fanatics and NBA, right? It's Medicom, it's Funko. You don't have a lot of these, think of like starting lineup, right? Starting lineup could be Tops today. It could be Fanatics, but no one really put those chase elements into the starting lineup figures and into those products, right? So we get to be in a very fortunate position to introduce what I think is the future of collectible toys, not to be too cliche, but this idea of taking license, and we know how scarcity works. We know how to create this value. And so the first set comes out in December. It will be very rare. There's only going to be about there's 800 base of each player, and then you have a couple chase elements for each of them. And then we go on from there. We'll do an NBA set that'll come out sometime towards the end of the season. There'll be an MLB set that'll come out at the start of next season. And then this will be the regular cadence each year. All the 11-inch ghosts, that'll be the bread and butter on Ghostwrite, really low quantities, 20 units, 30 units, 50 units, with all sorts of cool brands across all different parts of culture. But sports and the blind box, like, that's the scale. That's the new business. And this is never going to be as big as trading cards, never going to be as big as sneakers. But if you look at how sneakers and trading cards changed over the last decade, it was on the back of sports. It was on the back of understanding scarcity and how we create chase elements. And so very much like StockX, we just copied how the finance industry works and applied it to consumer goods. We're just going to copy how sneakers and trading cards work and apply it to collectible toys. And we're just fortunate that the WNBA and NBA and Major League Baseball is on board and happy to do it with us. So
that's fun.
It's pretty exciting.
And so because you got the sports element of this, I know you have been working with sports card breakers, and ourselves included here at Cards HQ, to introduce this as something that could be broken via like online breaks.
Yeah. When we started this, that wasn't the intent to create a breaker program, but once we were halfway through, it was so obvious because not only the question is, who are the big hits, but because they're collectible toys, it's not like trading cards where I can create 300 players and have the entire set like you can in cards. There's only 16 players in a set, so they're all superstars. The worst hit is going to be like a Brittany Griner numbered to 800, right? So it lends itself well to what we were talking about in terms of having a product that should be an ROI of 0.7 or 0.8 or somewhere where even the worst possible hit is still going to be a valuable product. And so when the release happens, we will still sell some direct on Ghostwrite. But most of the cases that we sell will be sold through the breakers. I'm fortunate because of my past life at trading cards to know a lot of the top breakers, and so we'll have a fun time with the top maybe 7, 8, 9 breakers. There's not a lot of product. There's not going to be a re-release of it. My guess is that it sells out quickly and hopefully the value goes up. All we really care about is the long-term value of the ghosts. And then we'll come back with NBA, and we'll make a little bit more for NBA. We'll make a little bit more for Major League Baseball. And either in season 2 or season 3, the way it should work is there should be 2 releases per season. So you have one, because again, only 16 players. So particularly for baseball, only 16 players, you can't even touch the number of superstars, right? So you have one release in the beginning of the season that has all the biggest stars, and then one release at the end of the season that has like the rookies that have emerged. Kind of the way it was like tops and tops traded, Fleer and Fleer update, right? We had this. So that should be the regular cadence at a certain point, but I think it always lends itself well to be a product for breakers. But ultimately, that Ghost and the big hits will drive the long-term value of it. And then we have partnership with AFA, which is the leading grading company for collectible toys. They do Star Wars and Transformers and He-Man and all those vintage toys. So if you pull a Caitlin Clark number 10, and the Caitlin Clark, by the way, has an R patch on it, so it's a rookie Ghost. Same thing, trading cards. You can have it sent to AFA. It can be graded. And then, we obviously know how grading transformed the value of trading cards. So again, we're just really just copying how trading cards work.
Yeah. Neat. It's going to be exciting. Yeah, we're going to carry some of it here in Cards HQ, and we're excited to see how it plays out. I'm excited to see how it plays out for you.
Yeah, thank you. I am too. Look, it's the first one, so who knows? Hopefully it resonates with fans. But yeah, I'm obviously pretty bullish on it and pretty excited to be able to do it. So
cool. Awesome. Yeah. So anyone in the audience who wants to get in on this, go ghostwrite.com, and the first drop will be the WNBA players. Yep. Yep. Sometime late this year.
Yeah, it'll be in like mid-December.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, keep the eyes out on ghostwrite.com.
Yeah. Thanks.
Awesome. Well, I know you got to go speak at some universities, which is pretty awesome, and help educate students on all the work you've done in StockX and the trading card space. So I'm going to let you go do that. But appreciate you coming by Cards HQ and joining the show today.
Thanks for having me, man. The store is beautiful. I appreciate the opportunity to sit and talk with you. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you out there to everybody watching. We appreciate you as well. And just a reminder that you can subscribe to the full-length episodes of this show on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts, in addition to YouTube, The Geoff Wilson Show on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. We appreciate you watching. We'll see you soon with our next one. Take care.